Hello, welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Stop, Look and Hasten, and with me today, first of all, my good friend Camden Spees.
Yo.
And we've got an extra special guest. First time doing one of these reviews is author Curtis Finley.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me on the show. I am happy to be here.
So just a few bits of info to get underway. So as mentioned, this is a review for Stop, Look and Hasten, released on the 14th of August 1954. It's the 718th in the series, and it's directed by Chuck Jones. You can find this on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 2 DVD set. I have a link below to that set, and I'm using a HD version that's lurking around for this review. You will not find this short on YouTube unless Warner Brothers themselves choose to upload it. It's under copyright, and I'm using this under fair use. But in case you haven't seen it, well, what synopsis can I give? It's Coyote, he's hungry, he wants the Roadrunner, and we get a series of gags around that. I mean, what else is there to say, right?
Straightforward.
So, a few bits of trivia before we go through the short itself. So, the title, it should be obvious, but I'll mention it anyway. The title is a play on the saying, stop, look, and listen. So, that's your typical crossing type saying. You guys had that saying where you are, like, for crossing the road, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. We had that one, and we also had stop, drop, and roll, and that's for when you're on fire.
And also, very unusually, if you watch the end of this short, you get a very unusual ending that doesn't occur very often, because usually you'll get the that's all folks with the rings and so on. Here, you've got the Roadrunner spelling out that's all folks, and the music plays a lot more faster. But when you guys see us on TV, I think that usually gets cut out, doesn't it? Because I've only seen this on disc.
That's what I've read.
So, one other bit of trivia, this one may not be obvious to those who might just watch these Roadrunners at random, but this one looks a little different compared to some of the previous Roadrunners. And if you look at animators here, you've got Richard Thompson and Abe Levitow, and this was done around the time where Chuck seemed to be experimenting with having only one or two animators on a whole short. You had Ken Harris on one, he did the whole thing on his own. He's actually not doing this one, even though he usually does. I don't know if you guys noticed as well, this one takes a little longer to get started than some of the other Roadrunners, doesn't it? It actually takes nearly 2 minutes before we start getting into all the spot gags.
But this is only like the 4th or 5th Roadrunner cartoon at this point, right?
Yeah, about that.
And they're still experimenting with things. And I know that once you get further along in this series, everything becomes more streamlined. The designs, the backgrounds, the gags, everything is way more streamlined. And so we're still in the early stages of Chuck and his team figuring out how they want to do these. And so, yeah, it does take a while to get going because they're still in that phase where they still have to establish that the coyote is desperate. He's eating a bug on the ground. He picks up that can and starts eating it because he's hungry. Later on, once you get further into the series, they just zoom right ahead of all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there was even one short, I forgot what it is offhand, where it's literally the coyote just standing there. He just has two signs and he just rotates around saying, you know, he's the coyote, he's hungry, here's the Roadrunner, and that's pretty much it. They just get right into it.
This cartoon, I'm glad that you chose me to be on this particular episode because it actually has my favorite coyote gag out of all of the coyote cartoons in this one. And I'm not going to say what it is right now. When we get to that part of the episode, I'll bring it up.
I'm looking forward to that because, yeah, this is one of those Roadrunner shorts I actually didn't watch growing up. I mentioned this in another review. I had a VHS tape, and we're those kids, you know, VHS tapes. It was an official release, and it had about, I think, 7 or 8 Roadrunners, which I know you're not really supposed to watch them all in a row like this, but anyway, I did. This was not one of them, so I wasn't as familiar with this one until I got the Golden Collection back in the day. But we'll take a look at this short, I reckon, from start to finish. We'll go through each gag and so on. But as we already mentioned, it takes a few minutes to actually get started. But I love this opening. He's just trudging along the desert floor. He's obviously hungry. Love the animation here. I'm not sure which of the animators did this. The acting of the coyote being so hungry and desperate to pretty much eat anything. I mean, he's going to eat a can, for goodness sake. Just amazing stuff. And he then looks up, he sees Roadrunner, and we hear the briefest rendition of A Cup of Coffee, a Sandwich, and You, right? Did you guys notice that? That little cue?
Yes. Chuck Jones uses that song all the time in his cartoons.
I just love that. Just of all the cues, it's like Starling, yeah, you rapscallion, you. And animation-wise, I noticed that in a lot of the Chuck Jones shorts, you seem to have a lot of this shortcut where if a character's running, you'll have separate elements of like feet in the background.
There's just some remarkable animation right off the bat. I love, like you just said, the scene where Coyote is just starting to run. And if you freeze frame any one of those frames, there are like a dozen feet in each picture. If you can imagine the animator trying to animate all of those feet as he's getting faster and faster, it's just incredible.
It's great effect. Fantastic. I have to admit, what I didn't expect was the eyes falling down. So when the Roadrunner escapes, we see off screen that the Cody's eyeballs just fall to the ground. That's very Tex Avery-esque, I think.
Not exactly even sure why they fall out. There's no real reason.
We don't need it. It's a cartoon.
I know, but usually there is, while there's a lot of illogical stuff that happens in these cartoons, usually the illogical stuff does happen for a logical reason. The eyes falling out, not exactly sure, but it was pretty funny.
All right, so we've got the opening, but now we get all the gags, which we'll go through one by one. And that's what I've been doing with all these Roadrunners, because they're all the same story-wise. So it's just a matter of just going through each gag and just talking about them. The first one, there's no real surprises. You know what's going to happen. It's a very simple gag. So the Cody uses a pulley, rope, and rock trap and tries to smash the Roadrunner, but he ends up being squashed instead. Nothing complex. It's funny.
I mean, this is one of the most obvious jokes, especially for those who are familiar with Coyote. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, but still funny.
Meep, meep.
Next gag I absolutely love, and I think I love maybe more for the animation than the gag itself, which is still pretty funny. So Cody's angry, he gets a lasso, or lasso, or however you guys want to call it. It's probably my accent's betraying me there. So he hears a beep beep, and sure enough, it's not the Roadrunner, it's actually the truck.
Meep, meep.
But the bit of animation I loved is when the lasso, I don't know, gets the truck, and the truck pulls the Cody. That bit of animation's amazing.
I like this gag because while we knew it was going to happen, the timing of it is really, really great. And I like the setup of the background because, of course, you know, these backgrounds are on two layers, right? They have the background and the foreground. And so the Roadrunner runs past the background. Then it's the car that zooms around the corner here. So it's just a nice, unexpected gag. Unexpected, but expected at the same time, I think.
Yeah, I think if this is your first Roadrunner short, it would be unexpected because you wouldn't have seen a truck gag, whereas we've seen a lot of these Roadrunners, so we sort of know that, at some point a truck's going to show up. I think it's a nice one, and I think, again, the animation is amazing, especially of the Cody being stretched like that. It's incredible.
A lot of great animation there, too.
So I'm going to try, Curtis, see if I can guess which is your favorite Roadrunner gag of all time. I'm going to try. I'll probably fail,
Okay.
but, I'm sort of debating, is it going to be the Burmese tiger trap? Is it? No?
No.
I probably got it wrong.
It's not.
Oh, well.
Well,
I'll figure out.
my favorite of all time of Roadrunners in this cartoon, though, it's the giant.
Oh, yes, at the very end. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but
a pretty good
Of
one.
all time, it's got to be the Batman suit.
That one is a
that's
good one.
Well, let's talk about the Burmese tiger trap. And can we just point out, first of all, with this gag, who wrote that book, by the way? How is that a how-to book? How to catch a Burmese tiger? Like, how does this book even exist? I just like the fact that there's this book there.
In the Adventures of the Roadrunner, doesn't he read a book called How to Eat and Catch a Roadrunner?
Well, there's a book for everything, I guess.
That's right. Well, I'm sure Acme has a very, very well-stocked library of all subjects.
Yeah, like literally everything you could possibly think of. But the Cody's a smart guy. He adapts it to catch a Roadrunner, using the same trap idea, but in a very funny twist. What comes out? a Burmese tiger that just happens to be there with the Latin name Surprisibus surprisibus. I'd love that. Absolutely love that. But the next gag is something that doesn't happen too often in a Roadrunner short, and I love when it does happen, where a gag is set up, but there's no payoff or no obvious payoff yet. In this case, it's that whole metal wall thing that's in the ground, and you have to wonder how the coyote even set that up in the first place. But again, cartoon logic, right? It's a similar idea to the earlier Roadrunner where the coyote sets up a free glass of water for the Roadrunner, and then later on he triggers it and ends up blowing up himself. Is this the one, Curtis? Is this the gag you like?
This is the gag. This is my favorite Roadrunner gag because of the payoff later on in the cartoon. And I love it because at the end of this portion of the gag, we've just gone through a series of gags where it's like, okay, we know what's going to happen. The rock's going to fall on his head or whatever. Or his trap's going to backfire. And then this one happens and the trap doesn't, it does backfire in the sense that it doesn't spring up. But as the coyote is jumping on it and digging through it, you're completely expecting it to pop up and like throw him across the country, right? But it doesn't do that. And typically what would happen with a Roadrunner cartoon gag is that the gag would end and it would fade to black and then it would move on to the next gag, right? This one doesn't do that. Coyote gets distracted and he starts running down the road. It doesn't fade to black. So you forget that this gag isn't resolved. It just moves right on to the next thing. And so that when you come back to it at the end of this cartoon, you've kind of forgotten that it actually didn't resolve. And I love that. I think it's brilliant.
You got just enough space between the two. It's like, oh yeah, that thing didn't pay off before. There was the initial payoff where it just doesn't work, but then you got the better payoff where it springs up, like I said.
And you're not expecting it to come back because the trap didn't work. It just got stuck in the ground and you think that's the end. And this gag was used in the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie. There's that section of the movie where it's like a 20-minute long Roadrunner Coyote cartoon where they take the gags from like every cartoon and make them into one long Roadrunner cartoon. And so the spacing of this gag is like they put this one near the beginning and then they pay off like 15 minutes later at the end. So you completely forget that it is even a thing. Completely. And then it just comes back and hits you in the head. It's like, oh yeah. And it's really, really funny. I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
It pays off better though when it's 7 minutes instead of 15.
With the 7, it's not even 7 minutes. It's 3 minutes in between the gags here.
Yeah.
And so you've forgotten, but you still remember the gag. When you space it out even further and you completely forget that it was even a thing because so much time has passed, it has a different effect. They're both funny in different ways, and I like it. I really like the use of the gag in both of those cartoons.
And as you say, it just goes straight onto the next gag without like a blackout, fade out, basically. And we go to the railroad bit, which I love the layout of this whole scene. It's just basically, I don't know, it looks like one background, really. But it just pans up, then down, then up. But it's so funny. It's just done so well.
This is one of those moments where you just feel sorry for him. Because unlike most cartoon characters, like you don't really want Tom catch Jerry or Sylvester to eat Tweety. But sometimes you really do want the coyote to actually eat the bird because he just tries so hard. And he's got a real struggle there.
Especially when the Roadrunner is being sassy about it, which he doesn't do in this cartoon.
You do wonder why he doesn't just order food from Acme directly, but anyway, I guess we'll have a cartoon series. So
land right on top of him.
I want to give a shout out to Harry Love, who does the effects animation in this cartoon. And Harry doesn't get credited in every cartoon that he works on, but he is on this one because I guess Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons maybe have more effects animation than other ones, perhaps. But when Coyote is hit by this train, we get all of those stars. Can you imagine having to animate all of those stars? And it's only like 1 second or whatever, but that's still a lot of stars to animate. And so I'm sure he had some sort of way that he would copy the stars or Xerox them and overlay them or whatever. And I'm sure it took a lot of work for just 1 second, but I love the effect.
Oh, it's definitely a great one. I think special effects animators don't get enough love, especially when we see effects like that, which go so quickly, but the amount of work they have to put into it.
Fantasia probably has the best example of effects animation because half the movie is effects animation.
And one other thing I just want to point out with that railroad bit is just the original score. I believe there's no cues in that bit, and I love when Carl Stalling does original score for certain scenes like this, and it works really well. It really does. But we move on to the next scene. Nice, quickie little gag. I guess break things up a bit. And again, you know what to expect, but it's still pretty funny how it's done. So he goes into the groove pipe. He's going to put a TNT underneath, but the plunger ends up detonating itself against the rock. Simple, but effective. I like it.
So I like the little touches that they put in the backgrounds of some of these. Coyote, when he crawls into the pipe, he's at mile marker 757. And I don't know if anybody can accurately place where on earth that would be in the United States of America. I don't know, but I just find it funny. And I wonder if that number is an inside joke for somebody or something. I don't know.
Well, knowing the Warner's team, there usually is an inside joke somewhere with these sort of numbers. So, well, I guess someone in the comments is probably going to yell out, it's where such and such used to live or whatever. So
probably.
We'll leave it to the commentators on the bottom there. But the next gag, okay, this one I did not expect in terms of the way it was executed, at least. So you got Cody on this wonderful 1950s style motorbike, and he starts to chase the Roadrunner, but then he just slams into a tree off screen, and then the motorcycle, in a nice added touch, is still on, is still vibrating him. I didn't see that coming. I thought it was great.
It's also, if you think about it, and yes, I know this is a cartoon, but he's holding on to both handlebars. How did it get wrapped around the pole?
Yeah, it's like cartoon logic and that, but still pretty funny.
But totally. I love it. I mean, it's funny.
But at the end of the day, this is another example of being economical, where why show the impact? It's actually more funnier to not show the impact and show the aftermath in this case. And then, 50 or 60 or so years later, people can debate as to how it actually happened. So, yeah, there you are. So we're now on the large suspension bridge, and we've got the bird scene. And we get the beautiful cartoon logic. This messes with my brain. It's a great gag, though.
One of the best things about this gag is that the gag ends with the Roadrunner just standing in the air. There's no wink to the camera. He just kind of stands in it, and it just fades to black. And it's like, well, is the Roadrunner going to be able to get down from his perch in the sky? Doesn't matter. Nope. Just let's move on to the next thing.
And you do have to wonder, I mean, you got the cartoon logic, of course, of everything falling down. He's in midair. I mean, I do wonder how on earth Cody was even able to get the saw through the ground like he does. But anyway, again, overthinking it, I guess. But it's very, very funny gag. So the leg bit.
So I love this idea. It not just takes one, but I love the idea that he's just going to chug the whole bottle.
And
That's
it's triple
the
strength
best
too.
idea. If I was a kid, this is exactly what I think would have happened. But I love the idea that he basically catches the entire highway in flames. And all you see is flames, like a background flames just running around.
Well, Curtis, you mentioned the effects animation. I mean, look at this. Like with all the flames, and you got the Cody, he's represented by the flames, and you got the Roadrunner represented by smoke here. It's amazing.
It's definitely, he's got his work cut out for him. And just with all of the smoke disappearing, there's just so much fun in this little part here. I love it when the legs are ramping up, just getting faster and faster and faster. And it's in contrast to how he did it at the very beginning of this episode, where he's running faster and you see a million legs. They don't go for that same gag again. They go for something different.
To emphasize more of the, I guess, the speed that he's like even faster than before because of these vitamins that somehow work straight away as soon as you swallow it. Again, cartoon logic.
I love the name of it too. Acme Triple Strength Fortified Leg Muscle Vitamins.
Very specific, just like the Burmese Tiger book. They have anything for everything, and it's Acme's taken over the world basically. Because like in the recent short Bugs and Thugs, Acme even owns their own petrol stations or gas stations, whatever you guys want to call them. They own motor oil. They've even got like a thing in space, like Martian apparently has an Acme brand device and Duck Dodgers. They're everywhere. It's incredible. Then after this, we get that wonderful payoff where the gate ends up going up and the Cody smashes right into it.
And it's
We probably-
perfect because
Yeah.
the gag before this means that the coyote is traveling faster than he's ever traveled in his life. And so the impact of this is even greater. I love it.
Exactly. And it's one of those things where, had this gate not sprung up like that, could the Cody have won?
Oh.
It's one of those things.
If it hadn't happened, the Roadrunner probably would have stopped and he'd be going too fast and he'd hit another tree.
Yeah, it'd be something else, but you don't think about that. And yeah, we end the short there.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up that a portion of this cartoon is shown in the Adventures of the Roadrunner, which was a TV pilot that they were going to turn into a TV show, but it never happened. And I'm sure at some point you'll cover that on your show here. But this is a very, very loose segue. As for those of you who don't know, I wrote a book called Chuck Jones, The Dream That Never Was. It's about a newspaper comic strip that Chuck Jones did for 6 months and has its origins in the Adventures of Roadrunner cartoon. So I figured that I'd just take the opportunity while I'm on the show talking about Roadrunner and Coyote to just do a little segue into that a little bit too. While I was doing some research, I found a lot of different little pieces of paper. I was searching through the warehouse at Chuck Jones Enterprises, and they have boxes and boxes and boxes of just paper and stuff. And just like you open up something and you never know what's inside there. And I found a couple of things about the Roadrunner show, including this one right here, where it says that Ralph Phillips and he has a brother there who are watching TV, and the brother is unnamed in the episode, but apparently his name is Arnold. That's something that I thought was kind of cool.
Oh, wow.
And another thing, I got a nice little layout here, a little production drawing of the two of them sitting on the TV. This is by Chuck Jones. You can tell by I don't know if you can tell when you've been looking at enough Chuck Jones stuff, you notice the way he scribbles. He has a very distinct way of scribbling. And so like the stuff on the TV, it's just, this is him all over. I love seeing these little rough production drawings.
This is also
See
when
what it
Chuck's
becomes.
style became more looser. They're very, I would call them on model compared to like the limited editions he would do in the 70s, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And then here's a nice production drawing as well, where it's kind of guiding where things are going to be placed in the frame with the TV in the top corner there. And one more here. It
Oh,
is not a
wow.
Roadrunner, it's a coyote. I just love these drawings because a lot of the weight of the line and just the looseness of it gets lost when you clean it up. And then when you transfer it onto a cell, and then when it gets shot in the camera, a lot of that gets lost. And so it's really neat to see just the original drawings and what they looked like.
Oh, for sure. It's similar to when Disney, their older stuff used to, you'd have the animator, then the cleanup artists and in-betweeners and so on. Then you had the ink and paint department, and some of the original line work gets kind of lost in that translation. But then once the Xerox process came along, you could see more of the line in 101 Dalmatians, that sort of stuff. So it's a similar sort of thing. But wow, that's really, that's awesome.
Once he got to this point in his career in the 50s, really started to be geared more toward focusing on children and that kind of stuff. And so we see that with the Ralph Phillips character. And the next time I'm on this show, I think you're going to have me talk about from A to Z. And I have a lot of stuff to say about that, it's going to be a lot of fun. But I wanted to bring up Roadrunner just because this is a Roadrunner cartoon. And so it's kind of a nice little tangent. But when they were going to bring this whole show to an actual series, they were going to flesh out the cast. And so it wasn't just going to be Ralph and Arnold as the main characters, basically doing the interstitials for the previously made cartoons. They were going to round out the cast, and the neighbor across the street was going to be a kid named Crawford. And of course, that show never took off. And so Chuck Jones took that idea of that little kid and some of the other kids as well, and stuck with it when he went over to MGM and tried to make a TV show with those characters. And then again, that didn't happen. So that he used the characters in a comic strip, which did happen, but only for 6 months before he called it quits.
Yeah, so it's a bit of extra history and a nice little bonus for this review.
One of the things, though, about Crawford is that Crawford never mentioned in his autobiography except that one drawing that has all the list of characters Chuck created. I'm using created also in air quotes because I think a lot of these characters you can't say Chuck created by himself without Maltese.
Right.
But Crawford is on the list in that drawing randomly.
Now, in terms of rating, look, I've been rating consistently these Roadrunners like either 9.5 or 10. I mean, take your choice. This is another amazing one. It's different than the previous ones, but in a good way. At least we get a little bit of a variety, and yeah, it's a great one. So yeah, we'll give it 10 out of 10. Love it.
I would give it a 10 out of 10 too. All of the gags hit. There's not a dud in the lot, and of course, it has my favorite gag, so I have to rate it high, don't I?
And Camden, we know you're going to rate it a 10 because you don't seem to rate anything lower usually.
No, I anything lower usually, but once you have me at gunpoint, Lariva Roadrunner that has my last name in it.
Oh yeah,
well,
right.
Then we'll talk about bad ratings.
But that will do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And until next time, take care.